All right, everybody, welcome back to the Mindful Hunter podcast. I'm your host, as always, Jay Nichol. Today, we are going to do a Q&A episode. I'm going to give an update on the backpack review, and I'm going to give an update on bodybuilding contest prep. So lots going on. So first, as always, if you could take a moment to engage with the platform, I would greatly appreciate it. Like, comment, share, subscribe. The best thing you can do is really leave a review if you use Apple Podcasts. That seems to have the largest impact on how far up the rankings the podcast goes. So give it a 5-star review, or actually physically write something. That would be super helpful. And I haven't shilled the merch in a while, so we might as well hit on that as well. If you want to support the podcast financially, the best way to do this is to pick up a shirt or a hat. So if you go to mindfulhunter.com/shop, there's a bunch of merch there. I really like it. It's really high quality stuff. The hats are flex fit fullbacks and, nice wool blends. And the t-shirts, I tried on 10 or 15 different types of shirts before I landed on these particular ones. They're American Apparel, so they're an inch or two longer than most of the other shirts, which I like because I hate short shirts. But anyways, if you want to go there and pick up a shirt or a hat, it's greatly appreciated. If not, no stress. So backpack review. Holy bejesus, did that thing ever go over well? I thought in my head that it was going to land because I couldn't really find a similar review of like equal depth, and people are always asking for these things to be put next to each other, and no one's really done it. And to be honest, most, content creators have a backpack deal. So they stick with one backpack that they have a brand partnership with. And I don't blame them for that. But to find somebody who knows what they're talking about and is willing to be upfront and honest about all the major packs. But I didn't think I was going to get the feedback that I did, both from the brands and from the people who watched the review. So thank you very much for everyone who liked, commented, shared. It was really rewarding because it took a shitload of effort and a shitload of money. And for it to be received like that just really kind of drove home for me like the why of the Mindful Hunter, and like the fact that that's exactly why I do this. That is the type of content that I really want to be putting out on a regular basis. Quick note about Initial Ascent, because everybody and their brother is hitting me up about them. I tried to have them on the review. I bought the pack and I waited for 3 weeks. And they kept saying next week, next week, next week. They finally didn't have any stock and I had to cancel the order. I think they are now back in stock. But, I'd advertised that I was going to do the review, and then to just keep delaying it, it was killing me. Plus, I need this review done before my sheep hunt because I need to choose which pack I'm going to run on the sheep hunt. And I need to review the packs in order to make an informed decision. So I had to cut them. Didn't want to cut them, hope to get them in a future version. I've also had a ton of requests for Seek Outside, and Seek Outside were great. They hit me up and they're like, listen, if you want a pack to review, just let us know. So Seek Outside will definitely be on a future version. I think what I'm going to try and do is an ultralight pack review, specifically the Terminus from Stone Glacier and the Seek Outside pack, because they're both sub 4 pounds and rated to carry 150 to 200 pounds, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. And I want to see if there's any other packs on the market that fit that bill. I don't know any, but if you do know of any, hit me up. I'll put a little Q&A on like a poll type thing on my Instagram once I'm ready to kind of initiate that review. So those two brands for sure. And then I don't know, we'll see who else. I think that's about it. I'm trying, I leave for Arizona on Tuesday, the 31st of May, and I'm trying to have the review posted by the Monday. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think if I bust my ass this weekend, I might be able to get it up. So I'll do my best. All right, bodybuilding prep. Holy shit, has the shit hit the fan. My God, man. You know, I thought I was grinding and I thought things were difficult until the last week. And now I wonder what the fuck I've been doing the last 12, 16 weeks. I think it's been a walk in the park. So real quick recap. I compete on July the 9th. I'm currently 6.5 weeks out. I've been prepping kind of since January because I'd done such a long bulk. I needed a long time to shave a lot of body fat. But it was kind of a slow, chill prep for the first, let's say 6 weeks, 8 weeks. But then for the last 18 to 20 weeks, I've been going pretty hard. Calories consistently dropping, supplements consistently increasing, standard prep stuff, body fat dropping nicely. I started out at 271 pounds. I'm currently 227 pounds. So dropped 45 pounds so far. Feeling good. Well, I'm not feeling good. I'm feeling like a bag of smashed assholes. If you really want to know the truth, like I've never been this tired in my life. And I want to preface all this first by saying I'm not complaining. I am loving this shit. Like I'm in it. I wake up every single morning and I just want to know how I can push myself harder. So I'm grateful for this opportunity, but in the same breath, I'm going to accurately explain what the process is like. And it's not pleasant. I think you can enjoy something that's not pleasant. And I think if you've heard me talk about hunting and solo hunting in particular, you'll know what I mean when I say that. Rogan calls it type 2 fun. I enjoy this shit, but it doesn't mean it's pleasant. So basically, about a week ago, my carbs got dropped to 65 grams a day. So let me put that into perspective. So I get 2 slices of toast with my breakfast, and then I get 25 grams of carbs before my workout, which is about a half a cup of rice. Okay? That's all the carbs I get. And when I say that, I'm not saying it lightly. I mean, I don't get snacks. I don't get sugar on anything. I mean, nothing. Everything else I eat is either a meat or a vegetable. So I have carbs in those 2 meals, and my other 4 meals of the day are just protein and veg. And it takes a toll. Like it's psychologically and physically exhausting, I'm going to be honest. And I got to give my wife some serious credit. Like, my God, I kind of warned her going into this. I was like, listen, I'm going to need some patience and tolerance on this one. Like, this is not going to be pleasant. And it's really important to me that I do this, and we're good. I think that's the thing I appreciate most about the relationship with my wife is that we are hyper practical. We don't always do everything together. All our goals don't always align. She's got things in her life that are super important to her that kind of fall outside my zone of interest, and vice versa for me. But when she tells me, like, listen, this thing's really important to me, then it's like, okay, game on. What do we do to make that happen? And she respects me in the same way. And so even though she knows it's bullshit and I'm being a bit of a dick, I've said it's important. I've put a timeline on it, and I'll go back to normal after it's done. But woman deserves a medal for this one, because it's not, she's having to pick up some slack with the kid, and I'm still doing my job, but there's a difference between showing up for work every day with a smile on your face and a bounce in your step, and just showing up for work every day and grinding it out. And as far as like a husband and a father, I'm kind of in grind mode right now, and we got 6 weeks left to go. And that's just the fact of the matter. So I need to give her a note of appreciation. I'm still training 5 days a week. I'm doing hot yoga once a week, and I do cardio twice a day, every day. And when you add all that up and then only get 65 grams of carbs every day, there's just not a lot left in the tank. There's nothing else to say about that. And I don't even think we're at the end yet. I think he's going to beat the shit out of me some more. I don't think he's happy. My coach, I don't think he's happy with where I'm at. And happy is the wrong word. I don't think he feels secure with where we're at. I think he wants to be further ahead of the game. With only 6 weeks left to go, I think he'd like to see me leaner than I am. And that's fine with me, man. I have a very interesting relationship with my coach. You hear all these people online talking about like, oh, this like the psychological mentoring and the coddling that coaches do. And it's like, I have no idea what any of these people are talking about. I have literally next to no interactions with my coach. Other than this, he tells me what day to check in. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. I take my pictures, I upload them, and I send him an update email by 5 o'clock in the morning. By the end of the day, that day, I get a reply. It'll have a new meal plan, and it'll tell me when my next check-in day. That's it. It will literally say, picks next Wednesday, and there'll be a PDF of a meal plan attached. That's it. We don't talk on the phone. We don't email. We don't text. It's not that I couldn't, but here's one of the things, like looking for some type of consolation or explanation or rationalization for why you're going through what you're going through, to me, is a waste of fucking time. Like this is shit. I don't need somebody to hold my hand and tell me it's okay, it'll be over. Like that just blows my mind when people need that. So I really respect the relationship that I have with Dom. And I like the fact that he doesn't give me compliments ever. I've never got like a holy shit, you're looking good this week, or yeah, we're ahead of schedule. Like literally nothing. I might get a note of caution. In one email, he probably said something like, we're going to dig a little bit deeper. We're not as far ahead as I'd like. I'm like, okay. And that dose of reality and that kind of like, I need almost to be a little bit afraid of authority figures in order to, and maybe fear is the wrong word, maybe a little bit intimidated. Like I want to feel like you've got something I don't, or you know something I don't, or like if you're going to coach me or lead me, or I'm going to follow you somewhere, it's like you better have a reason for me to do those things. And like holding my hand and coddling me is not that reason. I want, if I'm going to go to war, I want a leader that's like battle tested. And that's kind of how I feel about my relationship with Dom. Like I've seen this guy get hundreds of dudes ready for the stage. And almost without exception, every single one of those dudes was shredded to the bone. I'm talking inside out peeled. You could see their organs type of shit. And that's what I want. And having the faith in him that if I just do what he says, that's all I got to do. All I got to do is not cheat on the diet and do what he tells me to do every single day. And if I do that, I know unequivocally, without a doubt, I will be probably the most peeled dude on that stage. And that's all I give a shit about. I don't even care how big I am at this point. I'm already bigger than I thought I was going to be honest with you. Like I was getting ready to be a 6'1" string bean up there and thinking to myself, as long as I'm peeled, I don't care. And at 227 pounds, I still got some decent mass on my legs. My back's looking better than I thought it was going to be. So it's like, at this point, I don't even give a shit. I just want to be inside out peeled. And I know if I just listen to this dude, that's going to happen. So yeah, psychologically and physically, it's a little bit of hell right now, but with 6 weeks left to go, it's so exciting. Like to see your body change every day, to notice new veins, to pinch yourself in places and feel the fat disappearing. Like fat's going away from places where it's never gone away from before. Like I've never not had like a little bit of a love handle. And you know what I mean? Not like big fat muffin tops, but like a little bit of pinching, you know what I mean? At the back there, in the back corner, kind of just up above your glutes. Like it's always been chubby there. And that shit is starting to go away. I've never had bottom abs. You know how everybody gets the top two abs, but nobody ever gets the bottom two. Those are coming in, the veins and the striations of my quads are coming in. I'm starting to see my glutes. Like, yeah, it's hard, but it's also consistently self-rewarding because of how fast everything is changing. So that's where we're at with bodybuilding. And I'm actually going to, I mentioned I was going to Arizona next week, and I was like a little bit stressed about it, but I think I thought I had my meals sorted, and now it turns out I don't. But I'm looking at a backup plan, and I'm thinking to myself, if I have to, I'm just going to go to Whole Foods, and I'll literally just like fill up a couple Tupperware dishes with like cooked steak and white rice and take it back to the hotel. I've got a hot plate that I'm going to buy at Canadian Tire and take with me with a little frying pan, and I'll just cook my meals as I need to and grab some eggs for breakfast. So that's where we're at with bodybuilding. So let's jump in on the Q&A. I want to thank everybody. Super thoughtful questions this week, and a shitload of them. Every now and then when you put up a Q&A, you're like, I don't know, is anybody going to actually post anything to this? And when you get, an ass load of responses, it really, it's rewarding, man. You're like, okay, people do give a shit about this stuff. So that's cool. All right. First guy says, thoughts on the released regulation changes. A lot of misguided hate out there. And I want to say, I think that's a very interesting articulation of the question. Like, it's clearly biased in favor of the First Nations decision in a way, because I do think a lot of people aren't willing to associate some form of responsibility with this on the First Nations. Like, they clearly wanted less hunting pressure in their areas. And the fact of the matter is, the real root cause of this issue is overly aggressive resource extraction. And instead of limiting the resource extraction, the government of British Columbia decided to limit residents' ability to go hunting. And the First Nations never stood up and said, oh, no, wait. That's not what we said. They were like, okay, works for us. So I do think some amount of responsibility for the current state resides with the First Nations. And I'm going to be completely honest about this. This like woke bullshit going on right now where you're not allowed to express opinion if it might hurt somebody's feelings, or like, I am not about that. And I'm so sick and tired of all this bullshit. Like, here's what I'm willing to say. I'm a resident of British Columbia. I've been a resident of British Columbia for the last 25 years. I think I have just as much of a right to hunt in the province where I live and pay taxes and raise my family as anybody else. I don't think my right supersedes anybody else's rights. I think everybody else should have rights too. But this idea that some people have more of a right to hunt in Canada than Canadian citizens do, I don't buy it for a second. I'm sorry. I don't believe that. Now, this is not to say that I don't think we shouldn't look for amicable ways to move forward and respect history and the things that have gone on, but I do not believe that I should have to sacrifice my hunting rights in order to facilitate resource extraction and to appease some First Nations band that has some historical claim to an area. I personally don't believe that. And if that offends you, so be it. I'm not going to apologize for it. I do believe that they have a right to seek, reconciliation and restitution, but I think there's a way to negotiate those conversations without stripping the rights away from Canadian citizens and British Columbia residents who, in my opinion, have just as much of a right to hunt and to provide for themselves in this province where we live and where we pay taxes and where we raise our families. And it pisses me off, man. Like, it's not right. I don't agree with that. So I will push back at the question a little bit. Like, I don't think the regulatory changes were well researched. I think it was a knee-jerk reaction to a politically charged situation and a leftist woke government wanted a solution that would create the least amount of negative press for them. And so that's what we have. An ill-planned, quick reaction that is attempting to appease some aggrieved parties. And I think it's bullshit, and I think it's the wrong way to approach this. I don't know why we had to do something this year. Like, these things have been going on for decades. Like, why couldn't we have done, some population counts? And what happened to Together for Wildlife? What happened to this plan for scientific management that everyone agreed to and it barely got followed for like a year or two? It's ridiculous. So anyways, man, it pisses me off. I don't think it's right. I don't agree with it. I'm not saying there isn't a cause to do some research and to potentially make some adjustments, but I want those adjustments backed by science. I don't want them backed by politically charged situations where people who don't even hunt are making decisions for people who do. Like, this is a very, very important part of my life. And the fact that I'm powerless in my own province. Like, I personally have more hunting rights in the United States of America than I do in BC. What the fuck is wrong with that? Literally. Like, I can go on public land. I can vote on things. I can have my voice heard. They put things out for referendum. I have more of an influence on hunting regulations south of the border as a private citizen than I do in my own province. Like, I'm sorry, but that is wrong. And on so many levels, I don't even know where to start. Like, the fact that they open these things for dialogue and comment, and I guarantee 99% of those comments were opposed to it, and none of them got listened to. Like, what's the even point? Why are you even opening this for comment? Like, why aren't things like this open for referendum? Why aren't we seeking, public voice on this? Why aren't we giving, enough time period for, the appropriate science to be done? Anyways, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I think I've made my opinion very clear. I am not opposed to people seeking restitution or reconciliation, but I am opposed to my rights as a Canadian citizen and a British Columbia resident being stripped away from me without due process. So that's my 2 cents. Take it or leave it. Should you bulk or cut in prep for a long backpacking hunt? I like this question on one hand, and I don't like it in the other. Anytime you're asking yourself an either or question, it's called narrow framing bias, and you are inappropriately limiting your options for no reason. So I like it because it shows an awareness that how you enter a hunt calorically could impact the quality of the hunt. So that's a good way to look at things. It's a bad way to look at things when you said, should I bulk or cut? I would argue neither. But if you had to err on the side of the caution, I think you should be going into a hunt in a caloric excess, not a caloric deficit. And I think that's counterintuitive to the way most people approach it. I think most people see a hunt coming up and they think, shit, I got to lose 20 pounds because I'm going to be quicker on the mountain. And they don't realize that going into things in a caloric deficit affects not just your physiology, but your psychology. So just like right now, I'm dragging myself around by the ass because I'm in a caloric deficit and I'm losing a lot of weight. It makes things more mentally challenging. Like, even doing complex math right now is hard. Stringing together complete sentences can be challenging at some points during the day. I find myself searching for words all the time. So let's take that into a hunt. Let's say you cut for 2 weeks going into a hunt and, your mental stamina or your ability to endure is going to be limited because you're placing yourself under undue stress. You are going to talk yourself out of doing the hard shit because you're going to be losing the mental game before you even start the physical game. So in a perfect world, if you got 3-4 months to go on a hunt, you should spend the first 2 months, shaving whatever weight you want to shave. And then you'd be spending the last 2 months either being at maintenance calories or being in a slight excess. When I was leaner and, a little younger, I used to go bulk pretty hard before hunts because I knew if I went in there a little bit fluffy, it would be gone in the first couple days, and it was just calories I didn't have to pack around in my backpack. I don't really subscribe to that theory anymore because I think you should kind of be lean and trim, but in a slight caloric excess, because I think going into the hunt stronger physically and stronger psychologically is more of a benefit than shaving an extra 2 or 3 pounds in that last week or two. So great question, but broaden your potential answers a little bit. Try not to participate in binary thinking. Anytime it's either or, yes, no, this or that, don't ask yourself, how do I answer this question? Ask yourself, why is there only 2 options to this question? And how do I create more options? Buddy of mine says, do you fish? So I'm going to throw this out to the podcast. The answer is no, I don't really fish, but I'd like to. But I don't really know the first thing about fishing. I did a little bit as a kid, and I've been ocean fishing a few times on like staff parties and stuff. But I don't know the first thing about what gear to buy or what knots to tie or any of that shit. And I'd like to throw it out to the podcast. If there's any other dads out there in the lower mainland or even close by in the interior, like the Kelowna or the Okanagan, and you're going to be taking your kids out this summer and you wouldn't mind me and my daughter tagging along, I would love to get my daughter out fishing. And I don't really know the first place to start. And I'm trying to take some of my own advice, and instead of just bashing my head against a brick wall and trying to figure things out on my own, reach out for some help. So I'd like to put this out to the podcast. If you got kids and you're going to be spending some time fishing this summer, and you wouldn't mind some company and you wouldn't mind teaching us a little bit about fishing, reach out. I'd love to come out, and more specifically, I'd love to bring my daughter with me because I think, she's 6 and I think she'd have a blast. And if there's any way I can help, hunting, with advice or gear or any of that kind of stuff, I'd be more than willing to kind of barter my experience for your experience. Okay, recommended camera and lens and other equipment for casual use and wanting to start a YouTube. So this is not a question that I am particularly well suited to answer because I tend to buy really expensive shit, and I tend to get obsessed with production value. But I will say this, I had Nick Marchiondo on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and he recommended the Sony RX100, and I'm going to echo that recommendation. It's a point and shoot camera that has a zoom lens. It takes incredibly high quality photographs and video for what it is. It's simple. It's compact. You can carry it and use it super easily. And I think it would be a great starter option. I also think, to be frank, your phone is a great starter option. It has some drawbacks as well, but if you're limited financially and you just want to start a YouTube, or you just want to start filming some reviews or some stuff on your hunts or whatever, you could totally do it with your phone, no problem. And if not, I think a Sony RX100. There's a similar Canon, but I'm not a Canon guy, so I don't know what it is. But if you just look at, Canon point and shoots in the $1,000 to $1,200 range, that'll get you into the one I'm talking about. I just can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. And I don't think you need a whole lot else. A pretty cheap external mic is normally a good idea. There's one called a Rode Video Micro that goes for like $70. That's going to give you a big difference in the quality of audio that you capture. I think the next thing I might recommend would be a GoPro. And to be honest, you could even get away with just using a GoPro at first. And they're about $500 for the newer ones. And because they shoot in 5K, you can zoom in pretty severely. Another reason I'm a big fan of adding a GoPro to the arsenal is the fact that we're often exposed to the elements in what we do. And the GoPros are a tank. I thought I broke my Sony A7 III on my goat hunt last winter. And I actually filmed that entire hunt on 2 GoPros, and you'd never know looking at it. It looks really good. I'm even surprised rewatching it myself these days that it was all filmed on 2 GoPros. And I still have the 9s. The 10s are even better. I might upgrade this year because I usually upgrade my GoPros every other year. You can still get, $200-$300 for the used ones. So you're paying about 50% to upgrade. But that's about it. I think that's where I would start with that. I don't think you really need too much else. All right, Gary says we are losing hunting opportunities in BC. How do we motivate others to act? This is a very interesting question as well, and I want to talk about kind of the perspective of allies. So backcountry hunters and anglers took a lot of shit because of their recruitment efforts. Now, I think their heart was in the right place in that they were of the opinion that if there were more hunters, we would be a greater percentage of the overall population, and we would have a greater likelihood of a voting voice and a lobbying voice when regulatory changes were proposed. Here's the issue with that. Let's say we'll be generous and say that 5% of North America hunts. And now let's say we're able to do the impossible and double the hunting population, which is insane. It would never happen. The hunting population has barely grown in the last 20 years, and some would argue it's shrunk. But let's say we do it anyways. My question is, so what? So we've gone from 5% to 10%? There's still 90% of people out there who aren't hunters. We still get smoked at the polls anytime though the rest of that population is even moderately opposed or just not vocally supportive of hunting. So in my opinion, the question is not how do we get more people to hunt? It's how do we create allies from non-hunters? And I did this project for One Campfire through my day job where we looked at non-hunting outdoor enthusiasts. So we're talking mountain bikers, rock climbers, campers, overlanders, because these individuals have the same type of philosophies and care about the same things that we do. They care about they care about conservation. They care about keeping wild places wild. They care about being able to be isolated and secluded in the wilderness. And they care about the personal growth that comes from spending time in wild places. And so my question or the mission or the thing that I care about is not necessarily how do we get more people hunting? It's how do we have more conversations with those non-hunting outdoor enthusiasts and build relationships and create a sense of belonging or understanding with them that, hey, even if they don't hunt, they know some hunters, they know hunters care about the same things they do, and they're willing to support things that hunters need support on because we'll do it in return. If there's something that matters to the local mountain bike club and they need some public support, share the thing that they need shared. Go vote at the thing they need voted on. And then when we need that in return, we should be able to go approach them as well. And this can be done very practically. I give out sausages to my neighbors. Literally. I go and I hit them up. If I see them in the street, do you eat meat? Do you like wild game? I have some deer sausage. Can I give you some sausage? And it's literally just me trying to say like, hey, there's this thing I do. I'm a normal dude, just a dad down the street. I like to hunt. And now they have this positive association with hunting. Trailhead diplomacy. When you have to share the trailhead with people who aren't hunters, you treat them with respect so that, when they get home from their trip, they're like, man, those hunters we ran into were like really nice dudes. And they start to associate, positive characteristics with the hunting population. And then when hunting related things come up, they feel more inclined to support them. So I think long-term, it's this education and relationship building with the non-hunting outdoor enthusiasts that's really important as we move forward. However, One caveat is that I don't think we should have to sacrifice our way of life or compromise, inappropriately in order to do that. For instance, I kill animals. I don't harvest them. And I take trophy shots. I take grip and grins because I still have some from when I was a kid and my old man got his moose, and those things mean the world to me. They are emotional, sentimental collectibles for me that I'm going to keep the rest of my life. I don't do it to disrespect an animal or to brag or, to get more likes on Instagram. I do it because when I look at those pictures, it brings everything back to me in crystal clear detail. So I won't change the way I speak about hunting. I won't change the way I engage with the animals that I kill while hunting, but I can still be respectful and I can still build relationships. And I don't think we have to compromise who we are or what we believe in order to engage with other demographics. Any unanticipated training impacts from the body mass fluctuation you've had this year? Yeah, a shitload. And let's take it back 3 years, because I essentially started at 209 pounds 3 years ago. I got up as high as 271 pounds, and now I'm back to 227. And if you ask me to guess, I think I'll be about 210 on stage. So I will probably have gone almost completely full circle, except I will have added, probably 25 pounds of lean muscle mass over the course of 3 years, which is pretty impressive if I do say so myself. My knees took a beating. I tore a meniscus, and I blame that on the body weight. I blame that on trying to backcountry hunt while I was 260 pounds. It was stupid, but I'm stupid. And like the song says, if you're going to be dumb, you better be tough. My sleep went to shit. I had sleep apnea. I had to buy a CPAP machine. My blood pressure went to shit. I had to go on kind of a herbal blood pressure medication, and I had to get a blood pressure monitor, and I take my blood pressure 3-4 times a week in the morning to make sure it doesn't get out of hand. There's been several unintended consequences. Now, as I'm starting to lose the weight, a lot of that stuff is reversing. My knees feel better than they have in years. My blood pressure is way down. My sleep is phenomenal. And what this really drilled into me was, at 43 years old, I'm never getting that big again. Ever. I think I probably want to walk around at about 220. I'm 6'1". If I could be, 12% body fat and 220 pounds for the rest of my life, I'd be happy. That's a pretty fit dude. But I'm also okay with paying the price. Like, nothing comes easy and there's no free lunch. I wanted to step on stage as a bodybuilder once in my life, and I wanted to do it meaningfully. I didn't want to step up there as a string bean. I didn't want to just do it just to do it. I wanted to do it with conviction and with a real package and a real physique. And that shit don't come easy, and you got to pay the price. And the price I paid was, part of my health, part of my psychology, a shitload of food. And I'm okay with that. But like most things in life, if you want to really succeed at something that's challenging, there's going to be a cost. What is a great first hunt to introduce an Easterner to Western style hunting? I'm a big fan of bear hunting. They taste better than most people think. They're more, there's more of them around. See, like, there's an example. I was talking about my vocabulary the other day. I know there's a perfect word for what I was trying to say, and it's gone, man. I don't know what it is. So they're more prevalent, maybe. The populations are more dense. Anyways, there's a shitload of bears in places like Idaho and British Columbia. So there's lots of ways. Tags are easy to get. British Columbia residents get 2 bear tags every single year. And it's probably the longest season between spring and fall. I can't think of anything else that's open even close to as long. And they're predators, so they behave a little differently. It's a little easier to get interactions. Sometimes they can be a little easier to stalk. I love it for a lot of reasons. And it doesn't happen in your main season. So if you've never been on a hunt before, you get out for this little kind of training hunt in the spring. You can go day hunting. You could go for a couple weekends. You can take a week off work and go into the backcountry. That's the other thing about bear hunting. You don't have to go in the middle of nowhere. There's all kinds of places that are pretty close to where you live where you can go find bears and legally hunt them. So I think that's a great way to kind of whet your beak. I think number 2 is obviously going to have to be deer. Again, I think they tend to be pretty close to where people live, so you don't have to invest a lot of time and energy. I think I don't want to say they're easier to hunt and kill, but there's a shorter learning curve, at least to get, just an adequate representation of the species. Like, you want to be killing 180-inch bucks. That's a lifelong endeavor. I'm not here to say that's easy, but like going out and getting a 3-point in an open season, like, it's not rocket science. Like, most people could get that done in the first year or two. So that number 1 pick would be black bear. Number 2 pick would be some type of deer species. All right, what's going on with LEH? Well, my friend, LEH just came out. So that's what's going on with LEH. Everybody let me know if they want me to do an update on my own picks. Actually, don't let me know, because I'm not going to share my picks, and I'm kind of opposed to these like LEH workshops. I like kind of stumbling around and trying to figure my way out. So I will say, if you have any particular questions or you think I can be helpful and you want some one-on-one feedback on the LEH application, let me know and I'm more than willing to help. But I'm not going to do this like, hey, this is a good unit to apply for, primarily because I'll get flamed by everybody for it. And I don't believe in that anyways. All right. What cameras and mic setup do you use? Okay. So I have several mics. I have one camera, well, 3 cameras. I have one main body, a Sony Alpha 1. It is Sony's flagship mirrorless camera. It's about 10 grand. And I have 3 primary lenses for that camera. I have a Sigma 24-70 2.8 that I'm just about to sell and replace with a Sony G Master Series 2 24-70 2.8. I have a Sony G Master 14mm 1.4 and a Sony G Master 35mm 1.4. I believe in really nice glass. One of the things I've learned is that, especially as you start to build up a decent gear cabinet, good glass is more important than a good body. It will retain its value longer, and it's more of a bottleneck to production quality. You can actually get away, like, for instance, you can buy a 3/4 frame camera and full frame lenses. And then when you upgrade to a full frame camera, you can still use those same lenses. So you can buy alpha glass, a beta body, and then stick the alpha glass on an alpha body at some point later on. So I recommend, buy really nice glass and maybe a used body. If you don't, you can buy used glass as well. Used alpha glass. There's nothing wrong with it. And then for mics, I have a Rode Video Micro on my camera. Actually, I've replaced that with a Deity, Deity. It's a dual mic. It's got a microphone in the front and the back. And that way, when I talk to the camera from behind, it actually records me. For the podcast, I use 2 Rode Podcaster Pros. And then I have a shotgun mic, an Octavia shotgun mic that I use for the studio. That's really good as well. It's this weird Russian thing that's kind of like under the radar, but for the money, it's up there with like some Sennheiser shotgun mics. And then, as I mentioned before, I have 2 GoPro Hero 9 Blacks. What video editing do you use? I use Premiere. I think Premiere and Final Cut Pro are essentially equivalent. I think it's just whichever system you want to learn. I hear people complain about Premiere, and I hear people complain about Final Cut Pro. I used to use Final Cut Pro, and now I use Premiere. I feel more comfortable in Premiere, and it's a little bit more intuitive for me. But I've seen some tutorials on Final Cut Pro, and I was like, oh, I kind of wish that my software application did that. The other nice thing about Adobe products is that I use the entire suite of products. So I edit all my photos on Lightroom, make all my thumbnails, and do a bunch of graphic design in Photoshop. I edit all my videos in Premiere. And so the whole suite kind of works together, and you can buy it. I pay $80 a month for a subscription, and I get all the applications. They all stay updated all the time. They're legal all the time. And so that's another pretty compelling reason to just get familiar with the Adobe suite of applications. Talk about lifting heavy shit because it's cool. I like lifting heavy, and I wish I could lift heavier. I know some like legitimate strong guys at the gym, and it's like super impressive. And with the age I am, that's never going to be the case. I have a couple lifts that are like respectable. You know, I got up to a 6-plate hack squat earlier in the year before I blew up my knee. And I got up to, I think it was a 275 pound incline bench press for 8 reps, which is like respectable for a dude my age. I think lifting heavy has a bunch of positive and somewhat unintended consequences. From a hypertrophy perspective, I think the novel stimulus of progressive overload and forcing yourself to lift a little bit more every week can't be underestimated. And I think the kind of osteopathic benefits, or like your bone density benefits to lifting heavy, has been proven fairly substantially in the literature. And I think psychologically, like when you get under the bar with a lot of weight in there, like there's leg days where my hands are clammy and I'm kind of nervous and I think I'm going to puke a little bit. Like feeling that fear and then doing it anyways, I think there's a lot of benefits to that. So I'm a big fan of lifting heavy, and I think most people should lift heavier. Would you rather hunt bear over dogs with a bow, spot and stalk with a rifle, or bait with a bow? What a great question. I'm going to go bait with a bow. I am not opposed to bait hunting at all. I kind of like the little more hardcore version. Like I like when I see dudes like hiking in these barrels into the backcountry for bears and stuff. That's probably a little more my cup of tea than like the corn feeders in Texas. But like, I don't give a shit, man. I'll hunt corn feeders in Texas too, any day. I'm not opposed to any type of hunting that's legal and kind of ethically aligned with the traditional use policies of that area. So I'm totally fine with that. And bears are a hard animal to hunt. They're also a hard animal to be selective about. It can be very challenging to tell boars from sows. I've thought boars were really big, man, looking at them through the glass, and then that ground shrinkage, you shoot them and walk up on them, you're like, I probably shouldn't have shot that bear. They're very hard to judge. And I think having the luxury of having them come into bait and you can like pick and choose and look, I definitely like going on a guided, baited bear hunt next spring is totally on my to-do list. I would love to shoot just a giant black bear over bait, always with a bow. I have no interest in shooting a bear with a rifle over bait. I think the dog thing is super interesting as well. Maybe not something I would be into all the time. I like the kind of more solo pursuits of hunting, and I think like the noise and but I think it's just a different kind of thing. And I've always wanted to go cat hunting with dogs, so I think that I would love to do that as well. But I think what I would like to do most is probably the bait with a bow. Essentials for vitamins, electrolytes to take on first sheep hunt. So here's what I'm going to tell you to do. You're going to go to mindfulhunter.com/tools. You're going to enter your email address and you're going to download my backcountry meal planning guide, because I go into extreme detail about micronutrients, macronutrients, electrolytes, greens, powders, all that kind of stuff. And it's a little bit too in depth for the podcast. I will say this, I think it's likely the most overlooked element of backcountry nutrition. Everybody thinks about macros. Nobody thinks about micros. And if you want to talk about operating at kind of peak efficiency, you have to be looking after your electrolytes and your micronutrient profiles. And the only way to do that in the backcountry is with supplementation, because your mountain house and your peak refuels and all that kind of stuff are just not going to have naturally occurring the amount that you need to find. So yeah, I bring things like fish oil and vitamin D3 and a green supplement. I bring a fiber supplement to keep me regular. I put electrolytes in all my water. I bring a turmeric to keep inflammation down. Lots of good stuff. But go download that Backcountry meal planning guide, because I think there's a lot of really good information in there. Do you butcher the animals yourself or take it to a butcher? I do both. I prefer to do it at home. However, if it's a giant animal like an elk or a moose, or I don't have time, it is really nice to have a butcher professionally prepare it. Also, when I do things at home, I'm like the simplest butcher you can imagine. Like I took 2 bears last year and I ground 2 entire bears. Kept a little bit of stew beef, but other than that, I literally ground 2 full bears. I had, how many deer did I have this year? 2 deer. And I made sausage with all the deer meat. We have a very small family. My wife is a vegetarian. My daughter is only 6, and there's me. So having a fridge full of like roasts and hams and other stuff. Now, I do like keeping some of that stuff around just because family events and other things, and it's like fun, interesting stuff to cook. But for the most part, I keep it hyper simple. Also, I love giving away wild game because people, it just blows their minds. Like they love it so much. And in my experience, the best thing to give away is sausage. Because here's the deal. Unless it's like a backstrap from an elk or something, like most deer is like not terribly easy to cook, very easy to overcook. Some of it cannot be the most flavorful stuff in the world. And when I give people meat, I'm trying to reduce the amount of variables that can go wrong. I want to create the highest likelihood percentage of a positive interaction with that meat. And in my experience, that comes through sausage because I make it myself. I keep the fat content kind of low, 15%. So it's not this big grease stick. I keep them super flavorful, but not, too spicy so that the whole family can enjoy them. And unequivocally, every single person that I've given sausage to has loved it. So that's my recommendation. If you're going to give away meat, give away sausage. And if you're going to butcher it yourself, learn to make sausage. And I've always done fresh sausage. And now that I have the Traeger this year, I'm looking forward to doing some smoked stuff, like some, pepperoni sticks and some maybe smokies and some other things. Like I want to up my game a little bit. All right, last question. Best tip for a new bow hunter. I'm going to give 2 tips. Number 1, practice like you hunt. You are not a target archer. So when you get to the range, there's only one shot that matters all day. It's the first one you take. And I don't see people paying enough attention to that. They go there, and as long as they start shooting decent by the 7th or 8th arrow, they give themselves a pat on the back. And it's like, yeah, well, you just missed an animal 6 times before you hit it. And in the real world, that shit don't fly. And so I go through these little mini visualization exercises when I get to the range, and I actually try and see the animal in my mind's eye, create a sense of pressure and tension, put that pressure on myself that this is it. I only got 1 arrow. This is it right now. And kind of replicate that feeling that you get. And I want to sink the 12 ring on the first arrow and every arrow. Or I want to hit the X if I can. I place an undue level of importance on the first arrow because in reality, that's the only one that matters. And I'll find ways to kind of increase that as well. For instance, I shoot really short ends. Lots of times I only shoot 3 arrows. I don't want to get into the habit of not getting good until my fourth or fifth arrow. I want to give every single arrow the importance that it has in the field. So I only shoot 2 or 3, I take a break. I might even take a lap around the archery range or sit on my phone for a minute and take a break. And then I shoot 2 or 3 more. It's not a numbers game. I used to think if I go there every day and shoot 50 arrows, I'll be better at the end of X amount of time. And the thing is, you become a better target archer, but you don't become a better hunter. That being said, some days are for skill development, and sometimes just getting in reps are what you need to get there. But once you've got your reps nailed and you start developing an actual base of skill, practice like you hunt, not the other way around. The next tip I'm going to give is it's important to understand your gear, but don't get overwhelmed by it. There are so many people, and this happens in workout too, like, oh, how much salt should I have in this meal? And how much water do I put in? How many grains should this be? And what poundage? And it's just like, oh, for Christ's sakes. As long as you have a decent archery shop, make sure you have a solid setup that you trust, and then just go get good with it. And then start putting some animals on the ground. All these like backyard archery heroes who don't actually kill shit is like kind of frustrating. I'm certainly, there's lots of people who've killed more than I have, but for the amount of time I've been archery hunting, I'm very happy with the number of animals I've put down. And I'm also happy with how I conduct myself under pressure. Like I don't fold and I don't buckle. And that's because I've been up close to animals and I've put arrows through them multiple times that I now understand how that feels and I'm ready for it and I'm prepared for it. And that only happens through experience and exposure. And that's not going to happen if you're on some forum worried about what your fucking FOC is. It's like, just go drill something with an arrow and then you'll find out what actually works. All right. That's enough of me ranting for this week. Thank you very much for your time and your attention. As always, if you could engage with the platform, like, comment, share, subscribe, it's always greatly appreciated. And until next time, thanks for tuning in.